Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Hello. Welcome back. Welcome back. So what we're going to do now is we're going to, whoever you allocated as the person in your room, what I would like you to do is say what room you were in and then what were the key points from your discussion. And you've got 4 minutes to report back. So I'm going to invite the first room, which was collaboration. Who was the lead for who's going to report back from collaboration?
I was the scribe, so I'm happy to report back with what I wrote down, and then if everyone else chips in case I missed anything. So in no particular order, we spoke about how there is a range of size of organisations and practitioners, not all of which are properly constituted with reported on bank accounts that would be able to receive funding. So we had a conversation about things we can do to work with that, and Chloe from the New Wolsey explained how they do it there, which is they secure the funding and do that kind of legwork, and then employ freelancers to deliver that kind of work, and often the funding bid is written to support that individual artist's practice. Another example was given about how we can expand the group of freelancers we work with through looking at LinkedIn, visiting art fairs and so on, and we spoke about how it would be useful is if there was a place where organisations that want to work with artists and practitioners could collectively advertise those opportunities to artists, poets, all kinds of people across both Suffolk and Norfolk, because often artists work across both Suffolk and Norfolk, so that we can match organisations with the right kind of artists. And then people gave examples of the existing networks that are available for doing that. So Janet Perry's East Suffolk Culture newsletter, the Suffolk Culture Network newsletter, one for Norfolk. At Suffolk Community Libraries, we have a form you can fill out on your website if you're an artist and tell us what you want to do, and we'll see if we can help. And then we spoke about, I guess, a balance of power in that. So who gets to apply for the funding? What does that mean in terms of how that project is shaped and delivered, and how we find a balance about those things. And then Romeo from the Ipswich Romanian community gave an example of a festival that he's leading on there, aimed at supporting the next generation, which will include a range of service providers and cultural practitioners in celebration. I think feel free to chip in, fellow collaboration room people, with things I missed, as I'm sure I did.
Thanks, Eleanor. That's really good. If I could have a copy of your notes afterwards, that would be great, so I can try and collate the wealth of information that is being circulated. I think there's some really interesting points there as well, around kind of that balance of power, because I think one of the things that I noticed before, and I still do freelance work around this role, was the fact that there's so many different newsletters that I as an individual have to sign up to, and then I as an individual then have to spend the time reading all of that information, then I as an individual then have to decide which funding I'm going to go for, and then there's a lot of kind of time spent looking around for funding opportunities, reading the brief to see am I as an individual able to access this fund. So I think that there's something there around potentially in terms of from maybe there's one place where all this information can be collated, and maybe then within that there's like a section where you have ones that are available just for freelance, so that you don't have to then trawl through loads of information to find out which ones are relevant to you. Yeah, maybe, perhaps. That's just my thoughts on that. Thanks so much. That was a great feedback. Who was in the evaluation room?
Hi, it's me, Tash.
So are you happy to report back?
Yeah, I am the designated reporter. I will try and go quickly. So there were a few key theme areas that we were discussing. And so theme area number 1, evaluation as a collaborative skill blended activity. So actually those effective evaluations often rely on complementary teams with skill sets that are beneficial, and we can use mixed method approach as well. There's collaboration opportunities between evaluators. You can learn skills, you can share skills and knowledge. And also the recognition that having that blend of quantitative and qualitative data is important, but actually we need to recognise that we've got to move beyond deficit-based and medicalised framing. That can often be a bit of a way that it travels into. So evaluation should reflect strength and lived experience, and avoid reproducing stigma, basically. So a bit that really sung to with music to my ears was about embedding evaluation in everyday practice and part of the DNA of delivery work. So really thought about from that early stage, and not later on in any project, but also that data collection must benefit participants and not create barriers. It should feel basically natural, so that we're doing all the hard work behind the scenes, but for the person engaging with the service, using the service, they don't really see anything happen apart from they're just telling their story or they're benefiting. So thinking about methods, the traditional tools, feedback forms were not loved, I would say, by some people, some in the group. Often can be exclusionary, not sufficient in capturing that real lived experience. Storytelling was a method that was reflected as working well, but also co-producing methods and approaches to capture the richness and nuance and the personal lived experience also needs to be tailorable for those with different needs. So just a standard methodology, one size does not fit all. Utilise emerging technologies and novel tech to, whether it's tracking engagement, generating insight, and feeding back into that idea that actually for the person using and experiencing the service, that they don't have to do any extra legwork, they're just doing what they do. Share those insights, share the toolkits, share your learning, recognise the value of robust research. So the Shaper research was specifically mentioned, the King's College London research, some of it was recognised as not being in the public domain yet, but really good, having that robust approach that we can then point to, learn from, etc. And finally, that language matters. So how we frame, label and talk about participants and part of that evaluation process is really important. So we must really be recognising equity, inclusion and the power dynamics that exist as well. Have I missed anything, evaluation group, and have I misconstrued anything? If so, please shout.
Take a breath, Natasha. That was a really good, great feedback there. I almost wanted to say breathe because you were.
I don't do breathing.
But it was really cohesive, and yeah, if you could send me all of that information, that would be really beneficial. Yeah, the next group we had was legacy. Was anyone in the legacy room? Yep. Are you the reporter, Kasia?
I'm the reporter. I only started reporting a little bit after we started, so apologies, and do chip in, everyone, if I miss anything out. So we were talking about funders and legacy, and we were talking about how funders kind of put the onus on the artists and the organisation for legacy, and could it be more of a shared kind of process? And within that, we thought maybe it would be interesting to have the opportunity to talk to funders outside of a funding bid process, and find out a little bit more about what their kind of sustainability and legacy ideas are. And within that, it would be interesting maybe to understand or develop ways that funders could share their sustainability plans for legacy, and any resources, because up and running projects that are doing really well, there are so many skills within projects could then be shared. And if there are kind of a funding ethos and particular streams of work, then there should be, and legacy with each project, there should be a lot of knowledge that could be shared there, that could be handed down from funders to projects. What else were we doing? We were also talking about evaluation, and how the evaluation and the questions are based on funders' priorities, but what happens with all of that other information that comes out of projects, those bits of evaluation that don't go in the report forms that are really valuable, and how could that be shared? And we're talking about how facilitators and project managers know their audiences and communities best, and within projects, people on the ground see who needs to be served better within the community, and how can that knowledge be shared with funders as well. I think that was kind of where I got to. If anyone else has anything to chip in, let me know.
That's great, Kasia. Thanks again. If you could send me the notes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to collate everybody's thoughts and notes, and I'm going to send them out so that you have a record of the conversations and stuff that have been happening. I also want to think about some way that we can use this information and feed it back into funders as well, so that, you know, it's not, we're kind of, we have some agency around, you know, how we come together as a sector and the impact that we potentially can have. But hold that thought on that one. Do we have anybody from the capacity group that wants to report back? Was anybody in the capacity group?
There was just two of us, myself and Daisy.
Okay, are you reporting back, Nikki?
We failed to do that task. So Daisy, shall I just say something and then you chip in?
Yeah, I was going to suggest we could share it. Yeah.
So we kind of like talked about some of the things around valuing the sector in terms of often when you're working with health professionals, they are on very hierarchical and structured pay scales. There's issues around valuing the work of an artist potentially, particularly because we can be bracketed within the voluntary community sector, which has a certain level of implication that goes with that. We also talked about access needs in terms of writing funding applications, and Daisy's done a lot of work in that area. Daisy, I don't know if you wanted to say something on that.
Yeah, sure. We talked a lot about capacity. So first we talked about the capacity for freelancers to gain funding, and we focused on the Arts Council grants, which Nikki and I are both super familiar with. Well versed. So we were talking about you know, this issue. So I looked at the Miro board, and we were talking about this issue of you know, the time spent writing bids not being paid for within grants. And we kind of we both understand why, you know, things can't be backdated in a grant application. Otherwise people would just get into loads of debt in time, and the funders would be like held over a barrel, really. But we're talking about building in future projects into bids. So writing a funding bid for a project that is for the end of 2026 to the beginning of 27, that also has like a month's work of scoping and confirming partnerships and ideating the next project, right? So that's something that, as Nikki and I, like, I mean, I haven't ever seen that on a bid that I've assessed for grants. And I think that if funders were more, if people who had sat on that side of the table as funders were more often at these meetings and understood the implications for everybody individually, how this pressure of not being paid while you're writing a bid really is quite a serious issue in an artist's life.
I also wonder if there's some capacity within that to think about it as part of the evaluation, because they very much accept evaluation as being a core element of the project, but it's then thinking, where does that application go? Might be a way of positioning that area of work.
Yeah. And also we talked about the, you know, the existing bid writing training kind of provisions are not massive. I do deliver them in Suffolk and Norfolk from Essex Cultural Diversity Project, but it's coming from outside of the county. So where are the training sessions within Suffolk and Norfolk? I'm very happy to oblige. If anybody wants an individual training session, I can deliver that for them online or whatever. But this is not a pitch, but we're basically talking about, that capacity building and business development within creative individuals' lives. We see a lot of volunteering from artists in the health sector, and I think that those artists need living wage, and the more there are volunteers, the less likely the health sector is going to want to pay people properly. Again, like Nikki said, categorizing artists as within the volunteering community aspect of the NHS, and that's kind of it, really.
Yeah,
Lovely.
I think it's I'll also take back and apply some thinking to the training aspect that we were thinking about, if people would find that useful around maybe bid writing workshops and so on, in terms of what the Norfolk Arts Forum could potentially look at.
Yeah,
that's great, Nikki. I think there's definitely some conversation to be had around that, so perhaps you and I can have a conversation around that, and work that out, because it kind of ties in a lot with some people weren't able to be allocated a group, so there was actually a group that stayed behind with me, and we had this very similar conversation about creating spaces where, whether they be digital or physical, where co-working could happen, so that we could, rather than us all going for funding, say, I don't know, so the town project funding or the city funding, that rather than all these organisations going for bidding separately, that actually there's a space where actually we can all come together and collaborate on a project, so that there's less applications going into the fund, therefore increasing your chances of being funded, as alongside the fact that from a funder's perspective, having joined up applications actually is a strength in their eyes, and it makes a much stronger application, therefore increasing your chances of getting funded. So we were talking around potentially how we could make these spaces and places happen, how they could be equitable, so that the freelancers aren't incurring costs. So like, could we have a physical space a digital space similar to this, where co-working could happen? Could we also have a physical space, so that people could actually start to work together on funding opportunities, and on bidding for pots of money? So we had an interesting conversation around that. I'm not saying that we found the solution, but there was definitely some great ideas that were starting to come up, and I think that they require more further thought and further sessions like this, I think, where we get together and we actually talk about, would this work? What do you think? Because one of the aims of this network and these meetings is to get everybody's buy-in and everybody's feedback. I don't want to be sitting here coming up, planning all these things, and everyone goes, actually, what is she doing? That's not what we want. So I definitely think that there's more conversations that we need to have around this subject, for sure. I think we've just started to scratch the surface of this, but the feedback that's come back has been brilliant, and I will try and put this all together into some kind of cohesive document for us all to start working from. I don't think this is the end of the conversation. I think this is the beginning. Daisy, I can see your hand up.
Yeah, just really quickly, just came to mind, I think both Eastern Angles Theatre and New Wolsey Theatre in Ipswich had some really successful projects, which they had obviously worked into their NPO remit of teaching people how to write funding applications, supporting them with the applications, partnering them with the applications. They probably increase their revenue through it, I should think, while also building that freelance expertise and capacity in the area. So it might be worth just talking to them about it. I don't think they were specifically creative health projects, but I think New Wolsey Theatre had a boot camp. It was a boot camp, they called it.
Okay, Daisy, could you put
Yeah,
that on your notes, so that I can then look into that?
Just as from the New Wolsey, it was an ACE project grant bootcamp. So it was specifically for ACE project grants.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it was brilliant.
That's right.
It was really
That's
great.
right. It was really great. It was really, I attended it. It was really, really great.
Perhaps perhaps Chloe and I could pick up on that afterwards, and I can explore that in more detail with you, Chloe, and find out what that was about and how that operated. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Daisy, if you chuck that in the notes that you feed back to me, and Chloe, perhaps we can pick something up on that. I'm moving us along because we've got two people in the room that are here to kind of talk about some potential funding opportunities. One from one that's arts focused and one that's health focused. So I want to introduce you now, some of you already know, to Laura Cole-Matthews from Norfolk County Council, who's going to talk very briefly about the Norfolk Art Fund. And then I'm going to introduce you to Mandy Emery, who's going to talk about the social impact framework and how that can potentially benefit our work. So Laura, over to you.
Hi, I'm Laura Cole-Matthews. I'm the Art Support Officer at Norfolk County Council. I just wanted to tell you about the Norfolk County Council Arts Project Fund. Hopefully some of you are aware of it, and I'm sure some of you may have already applied previously. It is a small fund, so you can apply for grants of up to £500, but depending on the pressure of the fund and that funding round, you may not get awarded the full amount that you ask for. But it supports the development and promotion of a wide range of arts projects across all arts forms throughout Norfolk, and it is open to individuals, community groups, professional and voluntary, not-for-profit organisations. So where I know there's lots of freelancers talking about funding, and this one is open to freelancers. We also require some match funding income to be shown in your report, so that might be income from ticket sales or other grants, match funding, or your own investment or in-kind support. It can be although it's only a small fund, it can be really helpful for match funding for Arts Council England Project Fund grants. Last year we made 38 awards, and 26% of those applications also were successful in applications to Arts Council funding, so that can be really helpful. The kind of things that we can support are marketing, design and promotion costs specific to your project, costs involved in presenting artistic work to the public, so things like materials for workshops, venue and equipment hire, framing, things like that. And like I said, we can also support kind of your own fees, so artist fees in the development of that specific project, and photographer or videographer fees for the purpose of documenting the project. For the next financial year, so from April, there will be two funding rounds, and they will be the 30th of June 2026 and the 31st of January 2027. If we can kind of accept projects applications sometimes in between, depending on your timeline, but if you kind of plan ahead, that would be helpful, because we need to make sure that we have made our funding awards up to 6 weeks before the activity takes place, so that you can acknowledge us in any of your promotion for projects. I will post a link to the Arts Project Fund webpage on the Norfolk County Council website. The new application pack will be available there from April, but if you want to look at the criteria that are up there at the moment, then you can see that. And if you want to get an application form, then you email arts@norfolk.gov.uk. And also, we're very happy to support people if they want to make an application. If you have any questions, come to us. We're really happy to support you through that. And if we have any questions, once you have submitted an application, then we will come back to you and ask you those. We won't just dismiss the application. And I did talk about this in our group, but if you're looking for information about other funding opportunities, we also have the Norfolk Arts Forum, which is free to join. And you can get a newsletter, a weekly bulletin every Friday with information about all the most recent job funding opportunities, CPD events and things like that. So I'll put both of the information for both of those in the chat, and I'm happy if anyone's got any questions.
Thanks, Laura. That was I have already put the link in for the fund into the chat
excellent.
for you, but perhaps the email address for applications would be good as well. yeah, thank you for introducing that. And like you say, not a huge amount of money, but useful for match funding, where such applications, you know, a lot of the applications do need match funding. If anyone's got any questions, obviously, about that, then feel free to email Laura separately. So I'm now going to invite Mandy to talk about the Social Impact Fund.
Thank you. Good morning. So just to make the correction very early on, it's not a fund that we're promoting, it's a framework. So my name is Mandy Emery and I work at the NHS East of England Collaborative Procurement Hub. So we're one of 5 regional procurement hubs that work directly with NHS trusts across the country. So I will keep this very brief, but just to say very quickly what a framework actually is. So essentially a pre-approved list of suppliers that public sector organisations can buy from without running a full procurement process every time. So if you've ever engaged in public procurement before or submitted a tender or a bid for NHS or public sector work, you'll know that the process is quite time consuming. So suppliers will go through the formal process, the formal tender process once to get on the framework, and then after that contracting authorities like NHS organisations or local authorities can then either directly award a contract through that or run what's called a mini competition, and that would be between the approved suppliers. So the idea is that it does save time for commissioners to use a framework, and it pulls all those qualified suppliers into one place, just making that process much easier. So the social impact framework, the one that we're talking about today, it builds on that, but focuses specifically on services that improve social outcomes and reduce health inequalities. So rather than traditional services, like legal services or finance services, it focuses on enabling organizations like to deliver services, community and voluntary sector support, employment and skills programs. There's mental and wellbeing services on there. And then it's really about those preventative and community-based interventions. So the aim of it is, like I said, to address those wider determinants of health, like housing, education, social connections, and access to support, which, as you very well know, ultimately reduce the pressures on the NHS. So in terms of where we are now, we're currently in the pre-market engagement stage for the first reopening of the framework. So that tender goes live in May. We are holding another pre-market engagement session in April. So Claire can send out the links to that as well. So because we've already developed the framework, this pre-market engagement period is purely for information sharing to sort of build awareness and build knowledge of how to submit a tender. We had a lot of feedback when we opened the tender last year, how to make it more accessible for smaller providers to be on it. So we've taken that feedback forward, and this is why we're running the voluntary pre-market engagement period now. So like I say, the tender will be going out in May until July. And also just to say, we are running a supplier webinar on social value at the end of April. So if this is something that you are not quite sure of what it is or how to apply it, you are welcome to attend. It's open to all suppliers. So I can send Claire the link to pass on to you if you're interested in attending that. I won't go into too much more detail. We've got 2 minutes left, but I will send Claire some information that you can access in your own time, and the links to the pre-market engagement session next month. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mandy. That's really helpful. And for those of you that are signed up to the Creative Health newsletter, the actual link to the webinar was included on the newsletter that was sent out, the most recent one. I think I either sent it this week or the end of last week. I can't remember, but it was in the last couple of days. So there is an actual link to sign up to the webinar to find out how you can be included on the framework and therefore be considered for NHS commissioning. So we've got 1 minute left, and rather than do our usual evaluation, I am going to send that out. What I'll do is once I get everybody's written feedback, I'll collate an email and I'll send that out, and then we can have I might do something a bit different with the evaluation, because like I said, I think this is part of an ongoing set of conversations. I don't think this is the end of the conversation, so I might include some ask some questions about how we can take these conversations forward and what everyone's thoughts and opinions are about the best ways to do that. But I would like to thank you all for coming along this morning, giving up your time. It's much appreciated. Please don't feel this is just a talking shop. Everything that is spoken about and is given to me is all feeding into my thoughts, my knowledge on and how I make the best impact in this role. So I really do appreciate all your time, effort, energy, thoughts and feedback, because it doesn't go unnoticed. Just to say that the next meeting that we will have will be in May. It will fall during Creativity and Wellbeing Week, and I am hoping to do a session around workforce wellbeing. So hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, you'll have a lovely session where you'll get to focus on yourselves. So yeah, the link to sign up is on the Suffolk Artlink website, for those of you who haven't, but I'll also include it in the follow-up email for those of you as well that want to join the session in May. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day, and if you can, get out at lunchtime and take a walk in that lovely sunshine. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, Claire. Bye, everyone.